Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive?
Always ready to dig in.
Awesome. So today we're looking at
The X Factor, right?
yeah, the X Factor
Yeah.
2.0 by Brad Browning.
Lots of buzz around this one.
Definitely seems to be. And you actually sent us a ton of research on this, which is amazing. Thank you so much for that.
My pleasure. I was really curious about this one. The whole idea of getting back with an ex, it's a really common thing people search for?
For sure. It's like everyone's gone through a breakup at some point, right?
Yeah.
And who hasn't wondered like what if?
Exactly. There's this huge emotional component to it. So it makes sense that people are looking for answers.
Absolutely. And you've got all the bases covered here, product overview, reviews, purchase info.
Try to be thorough. It's always good to approach these things systematically, don't you think? No matter what you're researching, having a clear process helps.
Totally agree. Keeps you focused, helps you sift through all the noise.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's break down the X factor itself. What is this thing and how's it supposed to work?
Well, from what I've gathered, it's essentially a step-by-step guide. It claims to give you the tools and techniques to get back with your ex.
Right, created by this guy, Brad Browning. He's positioning himself as a bit of a relationship guru, right?
Yeah, definitely. Like a lot of these programs, the author's credibility plays a big role.
For sure. People are looking for someone who seems like they have the answers.
Absolutely. And that's where the whole marketing aspect comes in.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Speaking of which, the program itself is priced at $47, which, I mean, isn't crazy expensive compared to some of the stuff out there.
True, that's kind of middle of the road for these types of
Well,
products.
right? But it comes with a 60-day money-back guarantee, which that's kind of a standard move, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It's a very common tactic in this industry.
But it makes you wonder, like, why do they do that? Is it really because they're that confident in the product?
I think it's a bit of both, honestly. I mean, they probably do believe in the product to some extent, but on the other hand, it's smart marketing. It makes people feel less hesitant to try it?
Yeah, because if it doesn't work, you're not really risking anything.
Exactly. So it lowers the barrier to entry. And let's be honest, when you're dealing with the emotions of a breakup, that risk aversion is even stronger.
Oh, for sure. You're vulnerable. You're looking for hope.
Exactly. You want to believe there's a solution out there.
Okay, so that's the sales pitch. But what about the people who've actually tried this thing? That's where your research gets really interesting. I mean, you went deep on the user feedback.
I did. User reviews can be super insightful. They give you a glimpse into how the product works in the real world, not just in theory.
Totally. So, what jumped out at you? What kind of patterns were you seeing?
Well, as always with reviews, you have to take them with a grain of salt. Some people are just more prone to leaving reviews, whether positive or negative.
Right, you never know what's motivating someone to write a review.
Exactly. But even with that caveat, some interesting themes emerged.
Like what?
Well, one thing I noticed was a lot of discussion around Browning's no contact strategy. It seems to be a core part of his program.
Yeah, I remember seeing that come up in the reviews. Some people swore by it, others felt like he was too harsh or manipulative.
Exactly. And I think that highlights a crucial point. These techniques, even if they're effective, they need to be applied carefully. You need to consider the specific dynamics of your situation.
For sure. It's not a one-size-fits-all thing. Like,
Yep.
what works for one person might backfire completely for someone else.
Right. And that's where self-awareness comes in, and maybe even seeking guidance from a therapist or counselor.
Yeah, if you're feeling lost or unsure, it's always a good idea to talk to a professional.
Definitely. They can help you assess your situation objectively and figure out the best course of action.
Okay, so we've talked about the structure of the X factor, the claims it makes, the marketing tactics, and the mixed bag of user reviews. What's the final verdict? Does this thing actually live up to its promises?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And honestly, there's no easy answer. It seems like it's worked for some people, but not for others.
Which, I mean, that's kind of the case with most relationship advice, right?
Well, pretty much. Human relationships are complex. There's no magic formula.
So, for the listener out there who's considering the X factor, what's the key takeaway?
I'd say it's this. Approach it with a healthy dose of skepticism. Do your research, read the reviews, and most importantly, listen to your gut.
Solid advice. Don't just jump in blindly because you're desperate to get your ex back.
Exactly. Because ultimately, the most important relationship you have is the one with yourself.
That's a great point. And, it's interesting. Even if you decide the X factor isn't for you, there's still a lot to be learned from this whole deep dive.
Oh, absolutely. We've talked about psychology, communication, setting boundaries. These are all valuable skills, regardless of whether you're trying to get back with an ex or just navigate your current relationships.
Right. Understanding those dynamics can make a huge difference in any relationship, romantic or otherwise.
Exactly. And here's something to think about. How can you apply these concepts to your friendships, your family relationships, even your work relationships?
Ooh, that's a good one. Lots to ponder there. We've covered a lot of ground today. Big thanks to you, the listener, for sending in your research, for joining us on this deep dive into the X Factor 2.0.
It's been a fascinating conversation. And remember, no matter what you're going through in your relationships, you're not alone.
Well said. We'll be back soon with another deep dive. Until then, take care.